first order of business is the minutes from October, so we'll need an action on that.
Move to approve.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from October. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, next is public comments on medical center business. We have quite a crowd here and a sign-up sheet, so all right, so I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Tellerico from Lyons and Gaddis, who's going to run this portion of the meeting.
Thank you for signing up. I've got 11 people here, and the board will hear all of them. The board minutes or rules and procedures require a 2-minute limitation. I'll kind of keep an eye on it. And since there's 11, I assume it's all on the same subject, but if it's, we can allow all 11. Usually it's 10. But the first person on the list is Kelly Ash.
It's Kathy Ash,
I'm sorry.
and I would like to know where you would like us to stand to present our information.
Just right in the middle.
Right in the middle. Will do. Greetings to all of you. It's too bad we don't have a larger room. I would like to clarify a point of procedure, please.
Sure.
Many of us have tried to obtain information from the board of directors and from the executive office about any written policies and procedures with regard to time limits on public comment.
Okay.
None of that was furnished to us.
Well,
I can't speak for everybody, but I can tell you that mine is lengthy because there were a number of people who were afraid to speak and asked that I would speak longer so that they might just get up and say, I agree. If that's going to be inappropriate, then how does everybody here get the remarks they want in the record because they feel like they have been summarily ignored?
Okay. So often what we do is we as lawyers.
Right. This is
I'm a
counsel
lawyer.
for the board of directors. The president did not introduce her that way. That this is the counsel of record.
Right.
For the board.
So generally and often what we do is when we have a large crowd is allow 2 minutes per person. And then if there are others that have the same opinion, want to express the same thought, we ask them, well, some of you are already standing, but raise a hand, we count. There are ways of letting your opinion be heard without having to go well over the 2 minutes.
Kathy asked to have my 2 minutes, and my name is on the list.
There you go. And that's
Mine is
another
mine.
way. So the 11 people who have already signed the sheet, do you all want to cede your time to, or is there someone else that wants to speak? Is there anyone else that wants to speak?
I do.
2 others. 2 others, and you're both on the list?
Yes.
Okay, so you've got, let me use my.
Thank you. Okay. I just wanted to make sure everyone was clear because I was fairly certain people weren't going to understand. So thank you for the explanation. I appreciate it. I'm here to address the board of directors of the Park Hospital District.
Could you speak up, please? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
could you
Certainly.
stand
Is it
face
all right
this
if I
way
move
also?
this way so that the audience can hear as well as the
Why
board?
don't you stand in front so we can all hear you? Face this way.
Is that all right with the entire board?
That's fine.
Kathy, if you want me to hear you, anyway.
You want me here?
They don't want me up here.
Speak loud.
All right, use my big voice. To the Board of Directors of the Park Hospital District, my name is Kathy Ash and I've been asked to be spokesman for this group. I am a district resident and have been for 25 years. I'm a taxpayer, I'm a business owner, I'm a concerned citizen, and I am a consumer of health services here at the Estes Park Medical Center and Park Hospital District. We had a brief paragraph from Mr. White, should he choose to attend via voice. We were under the impression that he was attending via voice, so is this an unexcused absence for him? We'd like to know that.
It's an excused absence.
Why is it an excused if he said?
Can you speak up?
Myself or the
No,
president?
the board person is
It's
speaking.
an excused absence unless he decides to call in for the budget portion of the meeting.
She says it is an excused absence unless he should choose to call in for the budget portion of the meeting. The purpose of this group is to make it clear that the Estes Valley community has lost faith in the leadership of the Park Hospital District. The Board of Directors is elected to serve the best interests of Park Hospital District, its taxpayers, and the community. Some members of the board and the interim CEO have violated the community's trust. In order to rebuild community faith, you are called upon to immediately do the following. 1. Terminate interim CEO Mr. Mark Gregson. 2. Require and accept Ms. Diana Vanderplug's resignation from the Board of Directors. Number 3. Require and accept the resignations of any and all other members of the board that support Mr. Gregson's and Ms. Vanderplug's positions and leadership. As you can see, there's a large group of taxpayers and citizens here who are very unhappy with the state of the Park Hospital District. The district is accountable to the people in this room, in addition to all of the other taxpayers who are not here. The PHD Board of Directors works for us. We lack confidence in the interim CEO and the current board president. We believe Mr. Gregson has exercised poor judgment regarding personnel decisions. With just weeks to go until the new permanent CEO arrives, Mr. Gregson should be focused on ensuring a smooth transition. Instead, he has ignited a public relations firestorm in the community. He has undermined staff morale. He has created a difficult environment for the incoming permanent CEO. It doesn't matter if the public doesn't know all the facts. It only matters that Mr. Gregson does not understand the Estes Park area community and our perception of events. Mr. Gregson's position as interim CEO was contracted with the board. However, we've not been able to locate evidence of his contract approval in the minutes of the public meetings. Perhaps we've overlooked them. We understand that his contract for services has been extended, and yet there appears to be no evidence for that in public meeting minutes either. Whether he is an independent contractor or an employee, any approval of his initial contract and subsequent extensions should be recorded in the minutes. No formal action may be taken while in executive session according to Colorado Revised Statutes 24-6-402, paren 4. Approval of a contract and any related extensions are action items, so those would be a violation of Colorado Revised Statutes if any of those items took place in executive session. Mr. Gregson has also engaged a management company to evaluate the Estes Park Medical Group. Usually a contract of this scope and size would need to be approved by the board, especially in light of Mr. Gregson's short-term status with the organization. Again, there is no evidence the board took appropriate action on this issue in a public meeting. There is no record indicating Mr. Gregson followed best practices for the contract with this management company. Documentation regarding issuing a request for proposals and competitive bidding for this contract are also absent. In summary, Mr. Gregson needs to be relieved of his position due to our community's lack of confidence in his judgment and before he causes more damage to our district and our community. We are concerned about an obvious lack of transparency in the Park Hospital District Board. Arguably, the district is following the letter of the law with regard to transparency, but it is certainly not following the spirit of the law. The community's lack of confidence also stems from concern that board members do not understand their roles on the board and the law that governs their actions. Meeting minutes are not very clear, and they record irregularities in procedure. One example is in the minutes of the May 31st, 2016 meeting. At one point, near the end of the open session, Mark Gregson moved to adjourn from open session at 3:43 p.m. The CEO is not an elected board member, and elected board members are the ones who should be making motions. There was no motion to move into executive session, yet there is note of an executive session having occurred. Absent the appropriate procedures to go into executive session, discussions that occurred in such a session would be a violation of Colorado Revised Statutes. There is no record of the executive session adjourning and/or a return to an open session. Yet there is action in the form of approval of reappointments and resignations. Action items are required to occur in open session. There's a final motion to adjourn at 4:27 p.m. Why is there a need for an adjournment from a second open session when there is no record of it having been reconvened? Or why is there an adjournment from an executive session when there is no documentation that it was properly convened in the first place. It appears there are a lot of matters being handled in executive session. We question the legality of this practice given the board's lack of knowledge about the procedures that govern executive session. Our community lacks faith that the board is limiting itself to appropriate topics. All matters that are being handled in executive session could be in violation of Colorado revised statutes given the inconsistent application of the required procedures for entering and exiting executive session and the appearance of having taken action in those executive sessions. Please note, according to the minutes, Ms. Vanderplug and Mr. Levine were absent from that meeting and left it to the newly elected board members. But don't blame the newly elected members that face a significant learning curve. What a disservice to the new board members. How irresponsible to have left the district in that position. It would have been simple and appropriate to reschedule the meeting to a different date so that the two continuing board members could be present to share their knowledge. The president is no more important than any other board member. Board of Directors Policy Number 3 states that the board president can represent the board on issues designated by the board but can't make decisions for the board absent the entire board. Ms. Vanderplug should not send responses, such as her November 14th email noting the responses being from the entire EPMC Board of Directors. She should not respond to correspondence from the public indicating she is responding for the whole board when in fact she does not have the support of the entire board. In addition, members of the board are violating their own board policies. As an example, Board of Directors Policy Number 3 clearly states the board president shall serve no more than 2 successive one-year terms without a break as president for at least a year. Ms. Vanderplug was president when the policy was approved at the January 26, 2016 board meeting as recorded in the minutes of that meeting. Ms. Vanderplug was nominated for a 3rd term as president and accepted that nomination in violation of board policy. It appears that she does not think board policy applies to her. At the May 31st, 2016 meeting, again, the nominating committee submitted a slate of officers. According to the April 2016 meeting minutes, Mr. Chuck Levine was appointed as the sole member of the nominating committee. There's no record of who made the appointment. The definition of a committee is a group of people appointed for a specific function, typically consisting of a number of members of a larger group. Mr. Levine is indeed a single individual. As a continuing board member, Mr. Levine is responsible for knowing the policy that limits the number of consecutive terms a member may serve as president. Yet he nominated Ms. Vanderplug anyway. It is irresponsible that this has occurred because it appears to be an intentional violation of written board policy, whether that was the intention or not. Another community concern is the number of CEOs and turnover in this position in the last 4 years. This indicates to the public that the board lacks the understanding of what qualifications are really required by a professional CEO. We also believe it was inappropriate for Ms. Vanderplug to serve as a board member and a short-term interim CEO at the same time. The district seems to suffer from clerical errors in some of its published legal documents as well. Please note, the district transparency notice that is on the EPMC website indicates election results are found at the Secretary of State website. Special district election results have not been posted there for several years. They are published with the Colorado Department of Local Affairs. That should be corrected on the transparency notice. Another example of a clerical error is an incorrect address for Mr. Ryan White on the official canvassing results of the election that were also filed. In summary, Ms. Vanderplug needs to resign from the board due to our community's lack of confidence in her judgment and because of her lack of understanding of her role on the board in violation of board policies. If Mr. Levine continues to support Mr. Gregson and Ms. Vanderplug in their actions, then Mr. Levine should also resign from the board. The community will not have confidence in him either. As a final matter, should Ryan White still be on the board of directors? Why does he even want to be on the board anymore? He met the requirements to be a director at the time of his self-nomination and the election. A director is required to be an eligible elector. The state defines that as a registered voter of Colorado and either a resident of the district for not less than 30 days or the owner of taxable real or personal property situated in the district. A search of the Larimer County records shows Mr. White does not own property in the county. I point this out because Mr. White's LLC also does not own property in the county. A director's office is deemed to be vacant upon the occurrence of any one of 8 specific reasons. This is codified in section 32-1-905, paren 1 of the Colorado Revised Statutes. Reasons that could be applied to Mr. White are, number 1, failure to continue to meet the qualifications of director because we assert that he is no longer a resident, and or, number 4, failure to remain qualified for the office because he is so absent from the community, he is disconnected from what is going on. Mr. White appears to simply be using Estes Park as his residence for mailing purposes and for a physical location for his business. His address of record doesn't really rise to the level of a residence that is where he lives and spends most of his time anymore. His new profession requires he be absent for long periods of time. He is out of touch with the district and with our community. If Mr. White resides in Colorado, then why does his vehicle have an Illinois license plate? His vehicle should be appropriately licensed in Colorado if he is indeed a Colorado resident and has been for some time. This vacancy can be filled by appointment by the remaining directors. That's subject to Colorado Revised Statute section 32-1-905, paren 2, section A. Actions taken by the board after Mr. White was no longer an eligible elector may no longer be valid if he was a party to any 3-2 vote, where it could be argued he was the deciding vote. We believe he should remove himself because he no longer seems to meet the requirements to be a director, and because he certainly cannot have the best interests of our community at heart when he isn't present to see the frustration and anger in the community firsthand. He certainly must resign if he supports the actions of Mr. Gregson and Ms. Vanderplug. In summary, we want to take this opportunity to publicly recognize Gerald Mayo and Steve Murphy for their faithful efforts to safeguard the best interest of this district and our community. We applaud your efforts to take a stance against the poor leadership evident in the other individuals in this board and of Mr. Gregson. The community's lack of faith is visibly demonstrated here in this room by the number of citizens that are standing room only. We also have a number of petitions. This is not a formal recall petition yet. We have 458 signatures that want Mr. Gregson to resign effective immediately or to be terminated effective immediately, for Ms. Vanderplug, our president, to resign effective immediately, and for any other board member who continues to support Mr. Gregson and Ms. Vanderplug to resign immediately. 458 signatures. Ms. Vanderplug, only 323 people elected you. Mr. White, who's not here, only 231 people elected him. Mr. Levine, 415 people did indeed elect you. This is not much work. We haven't been at this for very long. You need to understand we are quite serious about the termination of Mr. Gregson, Ms. Vanderplug's resignation, and the resignations of other board members that support them. Members of our community group have already contacted the Larimer County Clerk and Recorder to obtain information about a recall election. We have contacted the Colorado Secretary of State to obtain assistance in matters that pertain to the Colorado Revised Statutes. And we have had discussions with the Colorado Department of Local Affairs, helping us determine the violations in executive session. We will use every resource necessary, including a recall election, to remove you. We only need 300 signatures to have a recall election. We'd have to do a second petition but we already have 458 with little effort. Please do the right thing and terminate or resign and save the district the heartache and the cost of a recall election. Thank you.
I don't know which of you, what your name is.
Barbara Pratt.
Barbara?
Yes,
Barbara,
Barbara Pratt.
can you put your name on this?
It was on that page. I wrote it. It's right there. With the flourish. I'm Barbara Pratt. In the late 70s, I came here. My family's had a summer home here since the 50s. And we had a little meeting. There was a group of us that decided this town needs to have a hospital. My cousin was a nurse. I got dragged into the meeting. And everybody decided we need to be delivering babies and people with heart attacks. And I'm like, really? Okay. Because at that time, we had Doc Mall. And Doc Mall told my aunt and uncle were builders here in the 40s and 50s. And he told her she was under a lot of stress. She needed to have a cigarette and a scotch every night. And she did, on her last day. So I came here full-time in 1987. My late husband and I had the radio station. He built the Holiday Inn. We had a sign business. We had movie theaters. And as I look around this room, I see people I know. Dr. Berglund. When my husband had his vasectomy, you played the Nutcracker Suite. And when I worked at the Scottish Festival, you bought a kilt. Did not know how to wear it correctly. And I told you I could either arrest you or show you how to wear it. I see people I work with. I see my doctor. I see friends. I see teachers. I see people with care. And what I would like to say today to those of you that are on the board, the CEO, what you see before you today is a representation of the admiration, the respect, and the love that is felt for Karen Nicholson. This expression of devotion has been earned. Karen's accomplishments, which have improved the quality of patient care here, are easily documented. Patient satisfaction, doctor retention, stellar press Ganey evaluation, and an assortment of recognitions which EPMG and EPMC have been awarded. What is not easily documented is the motivation behind your decision to terminate Karen Nicholson, especially in the light of her accomplishments and the huge outpouring of support she continues to receive. Your actions have created anxiety, distrust, and a negative distraction, which keeps the function and future of this hospital at risk. In addition, you have tarnished the reputation of a servant. We are here to ask you to reinstate Karen, work with her legal counsel, and bring about a swift and equitable resolution. I can assure you that at the end of the day, Karen is at peace because her intentions are good Her conscience is clear, and her heart remains pure.
I am on that list about midway down, Gerardo Garcia Ortiz.
Why don't you come up here, please?
Sure.
He'll lose his spot.
Great.
My name is Gerardo Garcia Ortiz, better known as G. I live at 506 St. Vrain Lane. As a community member, I echo what Kathy mentioned earlier. As a citizen, homeowner, and taxpayer. As a staff member, I am speaking on behalf of the staff who do not feel like they can voice their opinions. I'm okay with that since I've already turned in my resignation letter with the mistrust of this organization. I'd like to just point out an email from the board that was sent to all of EPMC users back in April of 2016 when they were in the search of a CEO, not Mark, but the real search. In there, it talks about the survey they sent to employee staff asking what do they want in a CEO. The results of that, they found that, I'll read word for word. Our consistent perception was that the board's overriding concern was focused on the finances of EPMC. They clarified it that it was not finances that is their importance, but rather quality was 45% important, growth was 30%, finance 10%, and the CEO improved leadership by 15%. Just to clarify, 75% of that was in quality and growth. Although this was expressed in writing, the recent actions taken by the board and interim CEO have proven differently. They continually focus and press us on the productivity of the clinic, which directly equates to the financial goals, the area they said would only be 10% focused. On the other hand, dismissing the focus on quality that was supposed to be the majority of the focus. Here, I have also from Press Ganey the results. You can see the red marking, you can see the green. 13 straight quarters, that's 39 months in the green that the clinic has provided satisfaction to our community patients. The medical practice is the only department on that survey there that from the entire hospital that showed this results. These scores directly equate to the quality, the area they said would be the most important. Even though we consistently score high, the veteran board members and interim CEO made the decision to remove the leader of the strongest department in this facility, instead of asking her how she maintains satisfaction score so high and the highest retention rate in this entire facility for many years running. The poor decisions has destabilized a portion of the workforce, costing a domino effect of quality staff members leaving this organization because of the mistrust. It has fractured the cohesiveness nature of the clinic without an explanation of the direction we are taking going forward in an honest and open manner. The passion of our medical clinic has been broken, and the way I see it, the involved board members and CEO have not stuck to the mission and vision of this organization. Thank you.
Public comments and move on to the consent agenda.
I have one comment to make.
You're not part of the public.
No, I'm not. But you've already closed that part, so it'll take but a couple of seconds. I just wanted to tell all of you, in case you leave now, because the other part's kind of boring. Thank you all for coming this afternoon. First of all, please know that your comments, your concerns, your speeches will not fall on deaf ears, but they will be taken to heart and discussed and acted on in some fashion. My main reason for speaking up this afternoon is to plead calm from all of you, no matter if you're here because you're a concerned member of the public or you are hospital staff. If you are indeed staff, I would personally ask you to continue to administer the 5-star quality of care giving that you are known for by putting your patients first as you always have done. I pray that all of you will seek guidance and direction in any action concerning the hospital. I believe there is a better day coming. Thank you for listening.
All right, we have a consent agenda in front of us, and we need to take action on that. So is there a,
Move to approve the consent agenda.
is there a second? All right, I will second it. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
So we need to sign Sarah's, that is the approval of the home hospice.
Okay. All right. You need that right, Kim? I'll just hold on to that. Next is the Chief of Staff presentation, and Dr. Ponkin, you've been serving for 2 years now. It's gone awfully fast, and we certainly appreciate everything that you've done to represent the physicians, both at the medical group, the hospital here, and Timberline, and everybody else who has privileges here. So I think a lot of the stuff happens behind the scenes that most people don't know, and we know how much time you put in, all the meetings you have to go to, everything that's involved in that, plus coming to this meeting every month. And from the board, we'd like to thank you for all of that. It really is a nice connection for us to be able to get information and really stay informed and be able to deal with certain things. So we have something from the board we'd like to present to you. And this is come up this way. We heard that you shop here quite often from Eric's store and thought that might be something that could remind you of your time as chief of staff. So we just wanted to thank you for that. And hope you enjoy that.
Is this Desolation Peak? Is it?
You know, it says on the back.
I was trying to figure it out.
Glasses on, so you're on
I
your
tried to get
own.
up Desolation Peak last summer and didn't make it, so.
There you go.
I just wanted to say that it's just been a joy doing this. It's a wonderful team of doctors, nurses, and all kinds of staff here. And I did want to add to the consent agenda that we just passed a state survey with flying colors. Things are going on well here, so we will all continue our passion of providing good care here. We appreciate the public support in everything that we do.
Since it's December and we had so much financial stuff to have to do, we did not add to the agenda some of the other kinds of things we would normally have on. So we'll get right into the fiscal. And Steve, you're the treasurer and whatnot. Do you have any comments from the finance committee meeting this month?
Not at this point. We are going to have our meeting soon. I mean, our committee.
We met last Thursday.
Well, I know, but I mean, the next one is like isn't 2 weeks, and that's not over Christmas, is it?
It'll be in January.
Okay, will we? Okay. No, there's nothing new since then. Mark?
Just that you have the financial report. I can get Mark Stanford on the phone if we need him for any questions.
Is this basically what we saw before?
This is what you've seen at the committee meetings before.
Absolutely.
And I don't, Chuck, if you don't have anything, you wrote, had a chance to review this at the meeting? Or
Yeah, we're,
it's at the bottom of what?
right there. Thank you. The one thing I wanted to point out for October was that our days in account receivable went up a little bit, and this was
this was a glitch that Mark knew about. It went from 48.7 days to 52.3. Still in the yellow, we're not to the green yet where we want to be. But that said, the days cash on hand to the hospital also went up. It went up from 208 days to 212. So even though we had a little bit longer in accounts receivable, the days cash on hand went up. And the debt coverage ratio is the other really important thing that we look at every month. And October's rolling 12-month ratio is 3.88. The minimum required ratio is 1.25. We are over 3 times the minimum. So our debt ratio is doing quite well. The rest of its figures are right in line with everything we've seen. We did have a much better month than we expected, and we're continuing to go on.
Would like to add one more thing. We talked about changing our accountant, our auditor.
That's down at the bottom of this.
It is? I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yes, it is an agenda.
Never mind. Never mind.
Yeah, that'll be there.
Oh, yeah.
Right, Mark, anything else on the budget?
Just to add, as Chuck said, we had a strong month, and actually for November too, because we do forecast in advance.
Yeah.
And looks like we're forecasting to make about $95,000, under $100,000. Whereas this is the time of year where we start bracketing numbers and predicting losses, just because we don't expect to be this busy. And so in fact, we think that number would have been more like 500,000 loss. So 100,000 difference is a big swing. We have been very busy. There's been a lot of activity through the month of November, and we've seen many patients in a variety of settings, and so it's also boding well for the year finishing up where we would expect and hope it to be for budget purposes, and then all allows us to talk about the budget in terms of how we've done this year. But so far this year, it looks like we believe we'll be at least on track, if not potentially better than we expected for 2016.
Okay. Any questions from the board? All right, so on to the adoption of the 2017 budget. Mark?
So we have, in your package, you've got the 2016 budget, and we did meet with the Finance Committee several weeks ago and gave him a preliminary number and said, here's where we are based upon our first review with the department leaders. And then wanted some guidance to say, okay, so where is it you believe we need to be for the year? And we agreed that it was about a $3 million bottom line is what seemed to be appropriate, and we felt very comfortable that could be the case. Positive bottom line, positive number. So we went back to work and made sure we built and looked to see what it take to make sure we reflected that. And so we did. And the number you have in front of you today reflects that number of just a tad over $3 million for the year. We think that's very appropriate, very doable, allows some flexibility with any unknowns that we might encounter over the next year. But in any case, we believe that's a very solid number, and particularly since 2 years ago we had our last fiscal year about $5+ million. This year we're coming in about 3.5. We think that $3 million is a very reasonable dual number, and it gives you some flexibility going forward with some other things to be able to consider. So we think this is a very appropriate budget. It does include the price increases that we mentioned on the revenue side. It also reflects expenses in there for the variety of things that we need to make sure we're accommodating, including employee raises. That's in there too. So we made sure that that's addressed, and that would be available for you to consider. As you have in previous years, it's been your practice to be able to do that around the fall. And quite frankly, I think you may be in a position to potentially even do more, but let's see how it goes between now and fall. So, but we tried to build that flexibility there.
So I had a question on that, because it shows wages down 4.4%.
Actually, what it means is that is 4.4% greater than the previous year. So actually, we showed it's a projected of 16, so it's a higher amount. Okay. So we're predicting $762,000 more, which includes a price increase. It does include moving some of the items around from contract to labor to make sure that's all stated. We took our contract numbers down too, because you won't be contracting, you'll have permanent staff in some of those positions. So all those together, we feel very comfortable has the number that'll allow you to do at least a 2% number for this next year.
And also, you've included in here, and I'm not seeing it, but I know it's in here, the capital.
Well, and that's the next thing that we want to talk about, and then is capital equipment. On top of that, the depreciation number does reflect us asking for 1.7 million in capital for this year. So that is reflected in our depreciation number too.
So the budget allows for 2%?
That's what we've got, which is what we did last year. Yeah, yes, it is. And certainly, you have the opportunity to consider that at a later point in time, but at least we built that in there, and that's what we did the last year. That's what everybody got this last fall.
Because I know we're losing people because of wages, and it costs us more to lose them than it goes to get them.
That being the case, I will tell you our percentages of employment and then our resignation rates gone from the high 30s to 17%. We looked at a list today that said we had, I think, 4 openings in the entire hospital. Whereas, just since I got here, in last fall, we had as many as 25 openings. So we are actually doing well at recruiting and filling positions and making sure they continue to be there. And we also made sure that there's flexibility in that number to allow you, because we think there's likely to be some competition heating up on the Front Range just because of more hospitals. It gives you some flexibility to watch and make sure that if you need to change individual ranges, that you've got that within your budget too. It's not something that would have to be outside what you would plan to do. So we've tried to accommodate for that also at the same time to make sure you've got that flexibility in there. We're very comfortable, again, we've had great success filling positions. Very little downtime in terms of vacancies. We've got kind of 2 really hard to recruit positions. But we've made arrangements for interims to fill those jobs on a staff level on locums kind of basis for now, but we're still aggressively trying to fill those. But in any case, we've only got a couple, the list today, I think it was 4 jobs that we have open today, right now.
Any board comments on the budget?
We need
Questions?
to disclose anything about dipping into 17's capital for the ambulance.
We're good in that. And then 2 things we've got in there this year. One, in 16, we have an ambulance,
Right.
which is about $213,000, and we're grateful that the Quota Club has agreed and already funded about half of that for us. We should take delivery on that ambulance in the next couple of weeks.
And
We've
we
been checking on
saved a
that.
great deal of money by buying it this year as opposed to the new regs for 17.
Right, so we hustled to make sure that vehicle
good.
is on the lot here by the end of December. So that'll save us a lot of money. Also, we have budgeted, and by the way, we do have a detailed number of that 1.7 already established. We've made our first shot at that. We've estimated about 1.4 of that in actual items and kept for contingency. And what we found is, you found this year already, things happen. And so we want to make sure we've got a number reserved for anything that we don't anticipate right now. That number is about $350. So it's like right now we're at that 1.7 million. That does include $100,000 for another vehicle for the ambulance, because we also believe there's another grant out there that can help us pay for the other half. So that's why we're putting one in for that for this year too. We've got a couple we need to replace over the next couple of years, and we'll be in great shape in that. You've done a lot to replace a lot of plant and equipment. We've also done a 5-year capital plan, and that allowed us to really look over that list this year, next year, and figure out, making sure we aren't putting ourselves in an awkward situation of you needing to go spend something that's got to be done immediately. We're feeling very good about the fact, with that kind of picture going forward, that number is a reasonable number for you to keep spending. That was the goal of the board some time ago, was to start to be able to have operations handle itself, and that funds that you have from tax districts be able to use for capital improvements and other projects. So we're on that path.
Can you enlighten me on the cost of your ambulances?
It's about $213,000.
More?
Well, it would have been about $50,000 more if we hadn't gotten it for the first year.
Just because of
New requirements, and we just by virtue of getting it now, we saved $50,000. Which is, okay, fine, whatever, but we get to do it that way. And we'll work on one next year. We've got some options already in place we're working on for that.
Second one, yeah.
Good.
Any other board questions? So before we adopt the 2017 budget, we have to ask if there are any public comments on the budget. Do you have a comment on the budget?
I did have a question about public comment at all in the meeting.
Well, we're on the comments now for the budget.
What are you accepting public comments on?
On the budget.
Question.
The budget.
Thank you.
Do you have a comment on the budget?
Where are capital acquisitions or real property purchases in this budget? are there any plans for real property purchases in 2017?
In
No,
17?
that 1.7 million does not, it includes plant equipment and resources on just the capital for the replacement equipment and related items.
What categories or what line items did that type of an expense come out of in past budgets?
It's almost the same.
Is there more detail available of this budget?
Yes, I mean, certainly we have that capital information. What we needed today was approval of the total number, and then we've already built out, and that's, the board has allowed us to go ahead and build out the how we spend that. But we've already started to show that to various entities. So we do have the detail on how we propose to send it, but it is how we propose to send it. And that is, we allow ourselves flexibility in case we need funds for other purposes.
Sure. What is the procedure to get those documents? There's been a little bit of communication issue with getting documents in the last couple of weeks.
Contact Lindsay, and she can get, there's a form to fill out,
Sure.
and then we produce that to you within 72 hours. We'll be happy to do so.
Okay. Are those documents ever available online or?
The annual audit is online, but the others are part of the minutes. And if there's something identified in the minutes that you want that's an exhibit, then we will happy to get that for you. We don't go to put all the exhibits on the website.
Sure.
So
I can help you with that, Mark. You ready
Thank
for
you.
that?
All right, so, we have the adoption of the 2017 budget as an action item, so we'll need a motion.
So is this this is the first adoption and then
Yes, as I understand it, it has to be filed with the state by around the 15th of December, and then I believe we have until the end of January to make any modifications.
we have a mill levy that we file as of the
mill levy
15th.
Yeah.
And we do not want to miss
Yeah,
that.
you don't want to miss
Yeah, all
that.
right. That's not good. But that's one it is on the
That's the one that's
15th.
required by the
Yeah,
15th. The
no,
other's
this
by
is
the end of the year.
first, and then we do it again next month.
Yeah, this is preliminary.
This is, yeah, I would move to approve preliminary, the budget for next year. Preliminary approval.
Is there a second? All right,
Second.
all right, so we have a motion and a second to adopt the 2017 budget. All of those in favor say aye.
Preliminary.
Aye.
Any opposed? What's that?
Preliminary.
Preliminary, yeah.
Preliminary.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Okay. So we have to have a resolution.
We've got,
All
I
right.
think, several resolutions that we need to file, which requires your,
Well, she's just saying this needs to be a resolution as well.
yes.
So,
Oh,
all right.
I'm sorry.
Well,
Okay.
in that case, if it's a resolution, we will just amend the agenda, and I need a roll call on that. So Steve, we're doing a resolution. On a resolution, you have to call each member and have you say yes or no. So instead of just doing a vote all at
For the
once.
same two budgets?
Yes. So Steve, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, Gerald?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Ryan's absent, and I'm a yes. All right. All right. All right, so the resolution on this passes. On the preliminary budget. All right, so we're next on to the amended 2016 budget.
This is a document we have to file with the state that shows any variation that we had from what we initially reported. And so in fact, our revenues were down and our expenses are down. So there's a different report that we have to file that we did last year where they were both up. But in any case, this is a report that we filed that reflects where we currently stand or expect to stand by the end of the year.
It's the same report, up or down, right?
Is that the 900,000?
Yes,
Yes.
950.
And 950, yes.
Anything else on that? Is there a motion?
And it's a resolution also.
It's a resolution, so that is okay.
Did you move, Steve? Did you make the motion?
Yeah, you said so moved.
Okay, I'll second
All right, so we have a motion and a second to amend the 2016 budget. It's also a resolution, so we'll need a roll call. Steve?
Yes.
Harold?
Yes.
Chuck?
it. Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, so that passes on amending the 2016 budget. All right, next is to summarize the 2017 expenditures. Mark, that's on you.
Yeah, and that just states the form of what we've talked about, extracted on the budget to reflect what we've said in the budget and the form that we've asked to be filed, and it does require also a resolution, please.
All right, is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, 2017 on summarizing the 2017 expenditures. It's a resolution. Steve?
Yes.
Gerald?
I don't think I saw it documented, so.
Chuck?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, so you want to take a look at that? You can look at that. It should be in your packet. All right, so the 2017 expenditures resolution has passed. On to the appropriating sums of money for 2017. Is that the same one? Okay. Okay, so we don't need to do that. Good enough. So then setting the mill levy for 2017.
That document is the certificate of tax lien, which is the more detailed one that you've got. It shows setting the mill levy at 7.505, and it's up by about $30,000 over prior year. So we've been using the same formula that we were given from the county that showed property values and other things to make the calculations.
But the mill levy is the same.
The mill levy is the same.
We have not increased.
We have not increased the mill levy. The mill levy is what you're allowed to do. That has not changed, yes.
All right. Yes, I got that. All right, so is there a motion and a second to set the mill levy?
I move.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to set the mill levy for 2017. Again, that's a resolution. Steve?
Yes.
Gerald?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So that passes. And the next is another resolution for C-Safe, and Mark, that's your item as well.
Yeah, this was the item that we talked about last month, or last time we met, that had to do with using our cash through a fund that you and Chuck both checked out with independent sources, thought it was a good idea. What we found out after the fact is we need a resolution, please.
Oh, yeah.
So we would respectfully ask for you to vote on allowing us to use this as a source for depositing cash, and again, we'll generate not a lot, but we'll generate some money.
More is
better than none.
More is more than zero.
It was substantial.
Yeah.
It's about 30 grand.
$30,000,
Yeah.
yeah, so on 7
It's
million.
not chump change, but it's
No.
All right.
higher on it.
But
So, any questions on that? All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to do the resolution for the C-Safe. Steve? Yes. Harold?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that resolution passes as well. I know that Ryan's been working on trying to get information on a firm for future audits, so Mark, you wanna fill us in on that?
Or-
Or-
Chuck, I mean, we talked about that at Finance Committee.
Yes, we did. And I don't have Ryan's emails. I sent it to my other email box you got. We can just talk through it.
One of them was 34 pages.
Yeah, I know, I don't want to talk, what, the other one's 31 pages, so it's not any great shapes. Ryan identified the top 7 audit firm, no, top 8 audit firms in Colorado for doing audits of medical organizations like this. The reason we're looking at replacing our current auditors is they've been auditors for us, I think for 5 years, 5 or 6 years. That's too long. We really need to replace them. So Ryan went out and did an analysis on his own and found that the top 4 wouldn't really deal with organizations of our size. So the next 4, one of them was our current auditor, and since they'd been auditing us for several years, he did not send them a request, but he did the other 3. And one of them did not respond, the other 2 did respond. The other 2 are very well-known Gerald, can you help me with the names of them? I don't have them written down.
Clifton, Larson, and Allen.
And EKS and H.
EKS&H.
And the other one,
EKS and H. That one I remember because I've dealt with them on several nonprofits that I've been on. We looked through the proposals that they made to us. Both appear to be highly qualified auditors. They provide similar services. Their fees are not, one is 42,000, the other one was about 56,000. So they, when you're talking in that range, that's a large difference. And also the one that's 42,000 would give us give the hospital a free, I don't remember what they can call it.
The on-site reimbursement.
On-site reimbursement, thank you, class for an assessment for our hospital. So Ryan's feeling was the first one, the non-EKS&H, the other one that Gerald said.
Clifton, Larson, Allen.
His recommendation is we go that direction. You have anything to add?
Was he employed by one of them at some time? I got the idea he was.
No, I think he was employed
By
by Bailey, our current people.
Oh, that's right.
And that's one other reason to go away from IDEA.
Yeah.
Well, we can't take any action on this right now, but it might be appropriate to have the finance committee and treasurer take a look at these with input from the rest of the board, because we just got the information today. And if everybody's comfortable, then we can let you make that recommendation and choose who to.
We'll forward a recommendation to the whole board at the end, at our next regularly scheduled meeting.
Yeah, are you,
Maybe sooner.
yeah, because we have to go to work. I mean, this
Okay.
is pretty tight, so one of the options would be to empower the committee to go ahead and make the recommendation, make the decision on behalf of the board. You could do that and give them any input you want from those that are on that committee. But we gotta hustle, because if we're gonna get ready for an audit, we got some work to get lined up for these guys. So,
Especially since this is the last meeting.
Yeah, your next one's not
yet. Before the end of the year.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, we could get the finance committee,
okay, yeah, that'd be great if you could,
Yeah.
all right.
as long as it's okay with the entire board.
so, right,
Are you good with that?
Do we have your permission to go ahead with our
take action to allow them to be
Well,
empowered?
Yeah,
You can't,
and
well, information purposes, right.
Yeah, yeah, and I think everybody's consensus here is that that's fine with the finance committee.
Okay.
We still have the information, we can still get them
Yeah, give input, let them know what you
Absolutely,
think.
want to hear any
Absolutely.
questions you got,
Yeah, sure.
and we'll go through it.
There was a possible third one out there,
But they haven't
but they
really
haven't
responded.
replied, so at this point, I think it's appropriate just to consider the two. They're good, they're solid
They're
out
both
there.
highly qualified, so.
Well, in the past, the finance committee has actually taken that as a responsibility
Sure,
and done
okay.
that, so that's appropriate.
I certainly know a lot about EKS&H. I don't know the other one, but Ryan does.
Okay, all right. Unfinished business is reception for the incoming CEO, Carrie and Kevin. It's Kevin.
Kevin's right.
Yes, hi. We are working on a reception for Dr. Larry Liming, who is going to be starting next month. His start date is January 16, and so we wanted to give him a little bit of time to get his feet under him. And so January the 27th, we have an event scheduled. We're in the process of planning. It'll be from 4 to 6, and the venue will be the front atrium here at the hospital. And that will be open to the community for them to have a chance to come and meet him.
All right,
Any questions I can answer?
I think we're good.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, we will go ahead and adjourn from regular session at this point and take a 5-minute break, and then we will move into executive session if we have the vote to do that.
What time do you set?